What's up, Bills Mafia? I'm Fernando Schmude. That's your leading the charge. And we're back, and the Bills are back. So let's talk some preseason. Let's talk the first kind of real Bills action this season against the Giants tomorrow at the Highmark Stadium. And to talk some Bills preseason with me, I'm glad to introduce Randy Hardman to the show. Randy, thank you so much for joining me today, brother. Long time no see. How's it going? How was your summer, man?
Hold on a second. My mic is okay. There it goes. It was good. It was real good. Had a big summer. Got married. Had a big vacation. So, it was very exciting.
Awesome. Congrats, man. Happy for you. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. I'm out here wearing my hoodie in the winter here in Brazil. But my winter is I always need to make the count here because I'm bad with Fahrenheit and Celsius, But right now it's like 59 Fahrenheit here, and I'm wearing my hoodie, Randy. I think
really?
It's 59 Fahrenheit. I think maybe it's offensive for Buffalo people to hear me out and to see me wearing a hoodie in this kind of weather, but it's kind of cold here for us,
Yeah, that's shorts and t-shirts weather for them. They think you're crazy.
Really? No way we're wearing t-shirts in this weather here. But gotta get prepared. When I finally am to go to Buffalo, I'll be in trouble, I think. But it's good trouble to be in. And tomorrow, the Bills Mafia will be able to be back in the stadium, right? And be able to start to follow this new journey that will be the 2025-2026 Buffalo Bills in search of this Lombardi trophy that has eluded us for so long, right? And Randy, I want to start asking you about for this game tomorrow in special, what are you looking forward to watching tomorrow? Because we already know Josh Allen won't be playing. And with the way people are getting hurt, not just in the Bills training camp, but we've seen recently in preseason games a lot of bad injuries happening all around the league. So it's kind of comforting that we won't have Josh out there, right? But what are you looking forward for tomorrow's game against the Giants? Which maybe competitions for spots are looking forward the most with this game tomorrow?
Well, I mean, you're not looking for a whole lot of groundbreaking stuff. It's first preseason game. Starters probably aren't going to get a whole lot of reps. But I think what you look for is you look for the rookies, the younger guys, to not look completely lost. So, and essentially, what I'm looking for is for like the second and third line guys that are competing for depth spots and possibly for reps in the future. Guys like Dorian Strong, people like that to come in and look competent, capable, and maybe even surprise, get a few good reps, make a play or two here and there, just to kind of flash in that first game action to show that maybe it's not too fast for them right off the bat. That's always what I like to look for. But as far as anything like meaningful or important in the first preseason game, it's not realistic to expect that. But I look for the young guys to make some plays and to hopefully flash some confidence.
Yeah, man, no doubt. I'm with you. I think with this first game, I think the most exciting stuff is to have a first look at our rookie class, right? Maybe some free agents as well, and to see how they look out there. Strong and special with Hairston struggling a little bit with that injury that will sideline him for quite a while. Let me put this way, because we know with the way the coaching staff works, and this kind of injury for Max Hairston has been really, really bad for his development or his chance at getting a starting spot for week one. I think it's pretty fair to already have Trey out there slotted as the CB2. And the only situation where I can see Hairston really having a chance if Trey looks really bad, but I don't anticipate it happening. So with Hairston coming from injury, probably Strong has a chance of even positioning himself kind of ahead of Hairston in a situation where we need a cornerback playing early in the season. Do you think this might be the situation of Strong? Do you think he might be able to do so? Kind of like, and I know people kind of freaks out when they hear that, but kind of like Benford positioning him ahead of Elam. Do you think Strong might be able to do so with a strong preseason showing?
I mean, it's not like we haven't seen it before. The high pick struggles a little bit for whatever reason, whether it be it injuries or performance or whatever. And the lower drafted guy behind him comes in, makes a huge move, and all of a sudden he's entrenched. And at recent history, it's not like we're pulling this out of nowhere. It could happen again, unfortunately. Ideally, you want to get you want Max Hairston to become an All-Pro. Everybody wants that. Why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Yeah,
we've seen this play out before. I think it'd be kind of silly to not just to kind of blow that off and saying, "Oh, that'll never happen." It literally just happened. So, you want to see good performance from Dorian Strong, because if Hairston doesn't work out for whatever reason, you'd like to not have to go back to that well again in a couple years. You'd like to know that you have that on the roster. It's the same thing with safety. You want Hancock to come in and hopefully show some confidence back there, competence either at the nickel or in the safety spot, whichever one they decide to play him at. So you have a backup plan there behind the people that are already there, behind a Taylor Rapp, behind a Teron Johnson, wherever he may fit in. You want to see the potential of having guys there that can step in and do the job when an injury happens or when someone leaves, for whatever reason. Depth is never a bad thing. So that's what preseason is for. It's for evaluating your depth and seeing where you have it and where you might need to add after the preseason, because people are going to be coming loose. And so if they see, look, the guys that we got here, it's just not enough, then you got to start looking at that, at the end of the preseason, waiver wire and whatnot, cuts, and then you kind of rebuild from there.
Yeah, man. This Max injury really, really sucks, because I was kind of expecting and really rooting for him to be able to beat Davis White in the preseason, and to be able to be a starter, a day one starter. We know it's not easy, especially when we talk Bills defense, and especially when we talk Bills secondary, right? Because they really value communication there, knowing the schemes, not messing up. We saw last season with Bishop losing time in the preseason and then not being able to become a starter in his rookie year. He was behind Rapp and Hamlin, maybe in our view or in the fan base view, a guy that shouldn't be so difficult to beat out for a starting spot. But as we can see again from training camp, a guy that the Bills coaching staff value really highly, probably and mainly because his knowledge of the defense and knowing how to communicate and how to not mess up out there. So with Max, we just like you said, Randy, we always expect our first round choices or first round investment to play and to become all pros, and those guys were first round picks for a reason. They are the guys with the biggest potential to become superstars for us, and we know those superstar players can make the difference, especially in the biggest games of the year when we face the Chiefs or the Ravens in the playoffs. And not having Hairston out there right now kind of put me in a negative mindset through him for this year, kind of like, okay, here we go, another year without counting on a first round pick contributing early in his first season. It can change, but the injury makes things harder. And having Strong as a possibility to be able to become good kind of gives us hope to have a fallback plan, right? Because when we look back to Elam's draft, yes, it was a bad first round pick. It sucked, but at the end of the day, having Benford working out kind of saved that draft or saved that selection. You had a backup plan, right? So it
softens the blow,
but Benford kind of minimized the impact of missing Elam.
I've seen that argument made where people are like, oh well, missing on Elam didn't matter because we got Benford. Like, no, it
No,
matters
it
because
matters. Yeah.
you blew a high round pick. You essentially just threw one out the window on a guy that didn't pan out. They had no way of knowing that at the time, obviously, so it's not like it's a completely foolish thing, but it softens the blow when you take a guy on day 3 that pans out, that gets a big second contract. Like, obviously that's awesome, but you can't count on that every time. We're saying Dorian Strong because he's the guy that we picked on day 3, but there's absolutely no guarantee, and there's actually a very minimal probability that a guy taken on day 3 is going to pan out to be more than a backup player or even a second contract player. I mean, the numbers flesh that out. It's low probability that a guy works out in that way, the way Benford did. So counting to say that, well, if we miss on Harrison, but Strong works out, then it doesn't matter. No, it does matter, but it does soften the blow when that happens. So we want both of them to do well, and we want Harrison especially to work out because that's where the big investment is.
Yeah, and soft blow is the perfect way to put it out. Thanks for the words, and at the same time, it's not even fair to put the pressure on Strong to become a new kind of Benford. I think you can't expect a guy like that to become so good as Benford has become, and that's why Benford really deserves all the props in the world for being able to be at the level he is right now. And just like you said, it's unlikely for every 6th round pick or so, late round pick or so, right? But anyway, excited to watch a little bit of Strong as well. And continuing on that defensive side of the ball, Randy, I'm really excited because one of my favorite picks in this draft, I don't know, maybe he wasn't. I know a lot of people hated the pick, other people love the pick. I'm on the side that love that pick, but the big guy, Deon Walker, I'm really curious to watch him out there to see if he's healthy and especially to see if he can dominate the opposition, especially backups and second stringers. If they take them on, he's a big guy. He's has some nimble feet. So I'm looking forward to see if he can win those one-on-ones or if he's going to draw a lot of double teams. And because I don't expect Nielsen and Babbage to go out there and send a lot of their special stuff they're working on during training camp on blitzes and stuff. It should be a lot of vanilla stuff. So good opportunity for not just Deon Walker, but also TJ Sanders and Jackson as well in the defensive line. All those guys. Solomon, a lot of people are talking a lot of great things about Solomon. He's another one of my favorites from last season. So looking forward to what those young defensive line guys and how they're able to take advantage of those opportunities, because Hoyts and Ogunjobi's suspension and Boza with his, let me say, not so...
Fragility?
Yeah, it's not easy to trust his health, right? So with those should be doors that wide open for the young guys to showcase something during regular season as well. And looking forward to what those guys out there tomorrow beating their one-on-one matchups as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's face the truth of the matter. This is a rotational defensive line. These guys are going to get reps. If they're active on game days, they're going to end up getting reps, whether it be even splits or 60-30 or whatever it may be. But they're going to get a chance in games to show what they can do. So specifically with a guy like Walker, I mean, yeah, you want to see him go in there and really clog it up and maybe make a play or two, shed a tackle and make a tackle for loss or something like that. But you want to see that that the back looks good and he's not too stiff in there, but also that he can move people around with that mass that he has, that giant size. I mean, he's an absolutely huge, massive human being. And so the last thing that you want to see is a guy that big to get pushed around.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be looking for with him. Not even necessarily making a play, but just not getting beat around at his size is important for me to see. And again, he's a rookie. It's his first game action, so it may happen once or twice. You just don't want to see it consistently if possible. Now with like Sanders and Jackson and especially Solomon coming into year 2 and the growth that we're expecting from him as a fan base, I mean, there's a lot to look for on the defensive side of the ball, especially on the front side. with Hoyt and Ogunjobi and their 6-game suspensions pending starting week 1. I mean, you want to see that these guys belong, and you'd like to see it, as quickly as possible. Obviously, as a South Carolina guy, I'm a big fan of TJ Sanders. I think he's going to come in and do pretty well right off the bat. And also just based on his skill set and what he brings to the table. But yeah, Walker and Jackson, those two guys, and Solomon, yeah, you want to see some stuff from them, hopefully, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and even Dwayne Carter, right? Because that's kind of forgotten guy when we talk about those young guys, right? And he was a third-round pick as well last season, and I believe he feels the heat a little bit, maybe with all those additions 1 year after he was drafted, right? And the math gotta work, right? And for now, Ogunjobi and Hoy are suspended, but when week 7 arrives, we know decisions will need to be made. So those guys can't take too long to showcase their skill sets, and they can really contribute, even if they, just like you said, if are just a low percentage of the snaps, they gotta be at their best in this low percentage and showcase they belong right in this line, because we won't have all those guys past week 7 in the roster. I think it's very unlikely. It's very fair to assume we'll have somebody here in this rotation having to go, right? I don't know if a trade can materialize maybe for a Peneza in the last year of the contract, or if Peneza will be able to play so well that we need to count on him still for the entire season, if somebody will step up. So all this evaluation process, I believe it starts tomorrow with the young guys showcasing they belong and they deserve snaps in the rotation, and they can really be able to produce as much as the veterans or even better, right?
Yeah, and there's a couple guys. There's a couple guys that you could watch, for possible movement as the preseason progresses or early in the season. I mean, look, Daquan Jones is an option, Epinesa is an option. You got guys behind them. You got young guys behind them that they've drafted, and I mean, if they show over expectation right off the bat, it's a conversation that Brandon Beane might have to have, with Sean McDermott and the coaching staff. Say, look, how good are these guys looking, and is there a possibility that maybe we can move one of them, moving forward? And if they decide that, yeah, we can go ahead and put one or two of these guys on the block, see what we can get, and see if maybe that helps them, acquire some assets for down the road. But I wouldn't expect that, because they're so focused on the task at hand and not necessarily that kind of planning for the future. And I mean, let's be honest, what you're going to get for any of the guys that possibly could be on the block that aren't superstars, the Epinesas and the Daquan Joneses, it's not going to be a ton. You're not going to get a lot for them. So if I'm Brandon Beane, I mean, if I know that I'm going to move off one of them or somebody, I'm going to try and trade them before just straight out releasing them. But I'm not going to be actively looking to shop somebody that could be a valuable part of the roster. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Daquan Jones is an interesting situation as well, because yes, he's a starter. He's a big guy as well. I think he's the biggest defensive tackle we have after Dion Walker. Zion Log, probably big guy as well, but we won't be talking Zion Log as part of the 53. Probably it's very unlikely. So Daquan Jones is the biggest guy we have to play the nose tackle position, other than Dion Walker, who isn't actually your prototype nose tackle as well, but he has the size. And at the same time, Daquan Jones hasn't been the force he was before that injury, right? That torn pectoral injury that sidelined him for almost all the 2023 season, right? And he's a guy that the Bills can save some cap space as well if they move him in a trade or even cutting him. So Jones is in that situation where he's a starter or he isn't even part of the roster. Maybe it's a situation that isn't very comfortable, I believe, for veteran guys. And how do you feel a veteran like Daquan Jones in this situation, and how do you feel he can deal with that? And are you expecting him to stay for the entire season, or maybe becoming an option? Whether maybe not just Dion Walker, but the other guys, Larry Ogunjobi or TJ Sanders, they are the kind of smaller defensive tackles, not small as Ed Oliver, but for a nose tackle, they are maybe better for the 3 technique, 5 technique roles, right? And So how do you feel about this Daquan Jones situation right now?
Yeah, I mean, I expect him to be on the roster. I expect him to be more than likely the day one starter starting the season. But things happen, you know.
Yeah.
Nothing's set in stone, but I think as far as from a rotation, from a starting lineup familiarity, coaching staff, whatnot, I think Daquan Jones is probably about as safe as you can get for a guy that's not on a big deal, on a locked-in contract. I think he's pretty safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, and even Larry Ogunjobi, the addition, free agency addition, he's suspended for the several weeks, and I can see a world where Larry Ogunjobi doesn't even play for the Bills in regular season because if you have Daquan Jones playing well starting, you have the young guy stepping up playing really well during 7 weeks. Are you gonna put one of those guys, young guys, in the practice squad and or allow people to steal them for you? I don't feel like it's smart, and so Ogunjobi has to really showcase his skill set right now in the preseason to make people remember about him in 7 weeks. Otherwise, those young guys can steal his spot, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's the second oldest guy on the defensive line, behind Daquan Jones.
Yeah.
So missing 6 games at 31. And in a crowded position, I mean,
yeah, you gotta open your eyes, right? And
well,
yeah,
no guarantees, right?
Exactly. Defensive line rotation will be something nice to follow during this preseason and starting tomorrow against the Giants. Bills Mafia, hit that like button, subscribe to Fernando Schmude channel, also to the Rumblings Network channels. Help us, support us. The Rumblings Network is back with content all season long for the entire Bills Mafia in partnership with Buffalo Rumblings. Obviously, follow us there also with our articles at buffalorumblings.com. So, still about the defensive side of the ball, Randy. A lot of talk about Matt Milano looking really, really great in the training camp, and I'm really happy with this because I even talked about it with Anthony Prohaska last week. How tough it is for guys like Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White to suffer with injuries and not being able to come back at the previous level. And it's tough. Great players like them, they sometimes think about something and your body can't give you an answer quickly enough, And by all accounts, by all reports we've had from training camp, Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano looking good during training camp, looking fresh, looking healthy. How excited are you to watch those Bills legends maybe already? I think Milano and Tre'Davious White, it's fair to say they are maybe already at this level historically. How happy are you and how excited are you to watch those guys during preseason to see if they are really that well and can contribute that well when the regular season starts?
Yeah, I mean, look, before we get to Milano, I have to say, Tre'Davious White coming back, if he's healthy and he's up to form, that's an incredible insurance policy to have in case Hairston doesn't start off the way that you want him to, in case, he struggles a little bit or he's hurt. Like we just talked about with Dorian Strong, that's not a guarantee that you can count on.
Yeah.
So having a veteran like Trey White, who was excellent when he was here for the most part, having him come back, being loose and free and not having a lot of pressure on him to live up to a contract or expectation or anything, just come in and play the way that he can play, I think is a wonderful thing to have. Do I want him to be the starter? No, I want Hairston to be the starter opposite Benford, obviously. But if he does end up getting significant play and he shows that he's, at least 80% of the guy he was before, I'm good with that. I'm perfectly fine with that because Trey was a great player when he was here, sans the injuries. Milano, it's the same thing, I mean, look, he signed that contract and it's been, some injury issues from there. But when he plays, he's been really good. Hasn't been perfect. There have been some things, over the years, and we don't have to talk about that. But, he's a great player. And, obviously having him healthy and out there, is better than anybody else that's going to be behind him. So it's great to hear that he's showing the Milano of old, in camp so far. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see the guys behind him because, that we play two linebackers mostly, but I think that in a way they would like to start playing three if they can sometimes to take some of the heat off of having Teron Johnson out there all the time. If they wanted to play like some bigger fronts, we'd like to see that a little bit. So I'd like to see what Eddie Olafonsu has in this preseason, honestly. The guys behind Milano and Bernard, obviously Buffalo Joe is a local favorite and everybody's excited about him. The coaching staff seems to be excited about him too. He's beaten the odds, so far. Yeah. But the other guys behind Milano and Bernard, as far as, Dorian Williams, Eddie Olafonsu, those are the guys that I'm looking for to kind of solidify their roster spots in this preseason.
Yeah, and even Shaq Thompson, Randy, I'm excited and curious about Shaq Thompson because, AJ Klein was the kind of security blanket that I never liked because he was limited like as an athlete, he had the knowledge, the leadership, but we know he was a limited athlete. Now Shaq Thompson, we're talking about a former first round pick. Obviously he's on the wrong side of the 30s already, coming from Achilles, I think, a year ago. And it's never easy to come back from those injuries. But Shaq Thompson was a pretty good linebacker for a long time for the Carolina Panthers, and a guy that was drafted in the first round when Bean was still out there, McDermott was still out there. They had quickly Davis and drafted Shaq Thompson to be that third guy, right, and learn from those veterans. And now he can become maybe this guy that Klein was supposed to be in the back end of the linebacker room, the veteran presence, the guy that can offer some stability in the back end of the room. Since we have Anderson, like you mentioned, Ulofosho, like you mentioned, that are young guys and unproven guys still, especially in the biggest games of the year. So looking forward to watch if Shaq Thompson is really well and healthy right now and be part of this rotation or this group, right?
Because if you look at roster construction wise, I mean, the chances of us keeping more than six backers is zero.
Yeah.
So the chances of us keeping six, maybe I'd put it at like 60-40, maybe.
Yeah.
But more than likely, you're probably looking at five.
Mm-hmm.
So Shaq Thompson is firmly on that bubble of guys that are fighting for that fifth backer spot, along with Olafonsu and along with Andreessen. I think Dorian Williams is pretty safe. Now he's a guy that might get moved. Coming into this year, he's a guy that they could end up moving if there's a decent offer out there, because there is a little bit of backlog and there's really no path for him to start behind Milano and Bernard going forward before the end of his contract. So there's a possibility there to free up a spot. But yeah, these guys are all basically fighting for that fifth spot. And, if they're lucky, they keep a six and it opens up one more. But I'd be looking for five and to see how this competition shakes out.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't, or if he isn't able to stay in the 53-man roster, but they might try to stash him that practice squad role that we've seen they trying with some veterans in the recent seasons, right? And maybe count on him being there as an option, or trying to stash him there and praying that nobody takes him away from the practice squad. That's maybe an opportunity, a possibility for Thompson as well. And to close out the defense side of the ball, the safety position obviously isn't the top heaviest position in our roster, right? But it seems they're giving all the opportunities in the world for Cole Bishop to take over that starting spot next to Taylor Rapp. Unfortunately, and he's being hurt again, and I'm kind of worried with this fragility from Bishop. The safety position, you can't be so fragile, but looking forward to having Bishop alongside Rapp, and also to watch some of the backup guys Ken Liu is even playing some safety, Hancock, and we haven't heard anything about Derek Foster so far, the guy that came from the Commanders, and a lot of people had expectations. I was curious to watch him, but so far, no news about him, nothing about him. Maybe the preseason is where he can show something. So, um, how about this safety fight for spots, Randy?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Forrest is a guy they brought in. He's on a short deal, and I think inflated expectations for him is kind of foolhardy. If it works, it works, and that's great. But just I'm not expecting a whole lot from him. I'm more looking at Hancock, Bishop, Rapp. Hamlin is what it is, right?
Hamlin is their client now.
Yeah. I mean, there's familiarity there. It's a good story. It's good PR to keep him around from a certain aspect. So they might look at that and say, he's a good depth piece, but we'd rather not, have him start if possible. Or they could take the emotion out of it and say, look, he's not one of the top 4 safeties, and we're only keeping 4.
Unlikely, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially with the way they are counting on him already to play first team snaps when the others are out. I see it very unlikely. But in ideal world for me, he's our 4th safety, not the first one out of the bench.
Right.
Yes. So looking forward to see if someone can step up and really become that 3rd safety, and if Bishop can lock down that starting spot and secure it for the regular season. Flipping sides, we have the offensive side of the ball as well. Josh Allen won't play tomorrow, but a lot of people talking about Mike White having a kind of strong training camp. Obviously, backup quarterback isn't something we pay much attention, and we don't want to watch him then playing during regular season at any point, right? But there is a kind of a competition there, or is there it, or do you think Trubisky is pretty safe? Trubisky will start tomorrow, then Mike White, and then Shane Buechele. Shane Buechele, honestly, is a guy that I don't know why they still have on the roster, because with what he has shown in the last opportunities in the last preseason, I believe you could have better there as a guy trying to show something for you as a prospect being developed in the back end of the roster, learning behind Josh Allen, but they are still wasting that spot with Buechele, and he's out there. He will play a little bit. But how about Trubisky and White? Do you see a path for Mike White to take over that backup quarterback spot and make Trubisky expendable, maybe, with Trubisky saving more cap space if he's out of the roster instead of Mike White?
It's possible. It's possible. I hear that they liked Buechele last year. So, I don't. It's a backup quarterback, man. I mean, Trubisky could get moved if they really like what they see from the other 2 guys. Mike White, obviously. I remember when he came out, I liked him as a day 3 guy because there's tools there, and there's obviously he's a big guy. He's got a big arm. So a lot of the things that that Josh brings to the table from a throwing standpoint are things that you can kind of see with Mike White. Obviously, not nearly the talent, or definitely not the mobility by any means.
Mm-hmm.
But he can throw the ball for sure. He can spin it. But as far as being able to move Trubisky for any sort of asset, I wouldn't, unless somebody has a major injury. I mean, what GM coach out there is going to think that Trubisky is going to help him, especially after seeing what he did in Pittsburgh?
Really tough to expect that from him.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
and even thinking Bills, Bills offense, I don't know. I feel like Mike White is the kind of guy that would mess up less regularly than Trubisky. I feel like he's a kind of guy that can be a better game manager coming off the bench and running your offense and than Trubisky. Trubisky has been there a long time, but I feel like Trubisky is still more of a boom or bust guy than Mike White, who's kind of more steady. That's what I'm expecting to watch during regular season to see if it's that the case, because last season, obviously, it was just few appearances, but Trubisky didn't mess up in his opportunities, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Trubisky is probably maybe the leader in the clubhouse for the backup job. I'm actually more interested to see how Bichelle looks, because I think they might like him a little bit more than we know. Not sure. I'm not sure. Why I get that kind of vibe about it, but I just get a feeling like maybe they like him a little bit more than we realize.
Maybe that's a possibility for sure. And then the backfield with the running backs, James Cook obviously sidelined for now for business purposes, right? And opening the door, right? Opening the door for people to showcase their abilities. A lot of good talk about Ray Davis being ready to take advantage of the spotlight. We know our offensive line is pretty good, right? We know Ty Johnson is a pretty good third down back. How do you feel about all this saga, all this James Cook saga right now? And again, I recently wrote about it at Buffalo Rumblings, and then very recently with Kyren Williams, we saw, in my opinion, the dagger about the value of James Cook, and I wouldn't be happy paying James Cook 15 million or more. He's a great player, great back, but I just don't see the value there, and I'd rather have the Bills following this path they've chosen recently, drafting running backs and letting them produce, and then moving on and drafting again and taking advantage of the position. But we know McDermott likes James Cook a lot. Brandon Bean likes James Cook a lot, despite, in my opinion, sounding a little bit off in the last few interviews about Cook, sounding a little bit upset about the way the negotiations have gone. So, can you see maybe they overpaying for James Cook to keep him happy and to make things easier for the season without any drama, or we can see a lot of drama still going on this situation, and also take advantage to talk about the rest of the group here at the running back position, please?
There's a lot going on with the running back conversation. Okay, there's a lot of things that are kind of conflicting, but are also true. In regards to the Bills and their running back situation. First and foremost, James Cook deserves to be paid by somebody. Okay, him sitting out, in preseason and practices and all that, standing on business and saying, "Look, I want to get paid." There's nothing wrong with that because he's earned it. He has absolutely earned a paycheck. He has absolutely earned a raise. He's outperformed his rookie deal. So let's get that off the table immediately. He deserves a raise. Does he deserve what he's asking for from the Bills as far as we know? Well, the short answer is not by Buffalo, based on, our recent history and also running backs, the market, the way that they're treated in the NFL. There's a little bit of a tide changing on that as far as like the Barkley deal and Kyren Williams. But I think overall, the sentiment is still draft, develop, replace, and we've also kind of a pivot on that point is that we have drafted and replaced running backs. We've never had a talent like James Cook that we've drafted in the Bean tenure, in the Bean McDermott tenure. Devin Singletary, nice guy, nice back, not the same. Zach Moss, obviously not the same. So, Cook is the first guy that was actually worth a decent money, big money extension. Where that money lands is going to dictate whether it's in Buffalo or somebody else. Now, do I think if this prolongs through the preseason, will it flesh out and go through the regular season? No. I think as bad as his representation might be as far as putting advice in his ear, I think they understand, and he understands more importantly, that it is team first and that sitting out into the regular season isn't going to do him any favors when he's negotiating with another team and, moving forward. I mean, players understand the business side of it. players understand it's preseason, it's practice. Look, if you got to make a move for your contract, they get it. Nobody's pocket watching James Cook and being like, man, you really need to be in practice. This is selfish. Nope. Nobody in that locker room is saying that. I promise you that. Absolutely promise you that. But that doesn't mean that if it extends in the regular season, people aren't going to look around and be like, dude, what are you doing? Come on. Like, there is an obligation here because you are under contract. And I think it's been pretty evident about, like, once the regular season starts, there's not going to be a whole lot more negotiation. And he does sound disappointed they haven't been able to get a deal done. So it sounds like they're working at it, but they have a number that they don't want to go over. So I don't think an overpay is in the future. Going to the other running backs that are on the team right now, I have PTSD from watching Ray Davis run all over the Gamecocks when he was with Kentucky. Okay, Ray Davis is a really good back. All right, I'm super excited to see him get a better workload this year and to really see what he can do behind that top-rated O-line that we have. I think he can be an absolute stud and a perfect 1-2 punch with Cook, and eventually a perfect 1-2 punch with whoever comes in behind Cook, you know, if it goes that route. So I'm a big fan of Ray Davis. I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic. The guys behind him, like Frank Gore Jr., as a potential, you know, fill in if Cook does end up holding out or if they end up moving off of him eventually. It's a lot of wait and see. But I think the idea is Cook, Davis, Johnson as your 1, 2, 3, and the other guys are kind of, you know, possibilities.
Yeah, Darrell Evans is also there again, right? I think it's the third off season already. He's out there, and we know his role by now, right? And
we know what that is.
Yeah, and man, I really, and it's not like I don't like Cook. I really think he's an awesome player, but we know that the running back market is a mess right now. It's difficult. You know, the running backs are in a difficult situation, and with the Kyren Williams deal, a guy who plays 80% of the snaps and does it all for the Rams, you know, I don't feel like Kyren has the sixth gear that Cook has, the big play potential that Cook has, and that's why we can talk Cook in the same area with Kyren, because
that's the
different kind of backs, but good at the same level, in my opinion, you know.
And that's your trade-off is that with Williams, you know, he plays more snaps, but, you know, Cook is a more explosive player. You got the big play potential with Cook, you know, that maybe Williams doesn't offer you, but there's also the fact that he doesn't have the snap share. He doesn't have the percentage of snaps. And, you know, who knows where Bean is as far as evaluating all that put together to come up with whatever number he has, you know, on his board and in his ledger and saying this is our number. You know, what Cook isn't Saquon Barkley. That's got to be made perfectly clear. Cook is a great player. He's not Saquon Barkley. So he's not going to get Saquon Barkley money, and he shouldn't get Saquon Barkley money.
Exactly. And by all information we've had so far, I don't believe James Cook is ready to sign a deal similar to Kyren Williams. I can be wrong, but I believe he wants more than that. And that's where I'm not comfortable paying him, you know. And on the other hand, we have a guy like Ray Davis, who might be a guy who can be a kind of a Kyren Williams, you know, like more steady and maybe obviously not as explosive as James Cook, but maybe a guy who can grow and become that kind of bell cow if needed. And the Bills haven't needed it so far, but that's where I'm so excited to see a little bit more of Ray Davis. And we know Ty can play well in that role, third down role, and how much chemistry he has with Josh in that role. So I think it's interesting to see whether Cook kind of accepts the situation and plays at his best this season and waits a little bit more to see if he can really make that much money. He can prove maybe that he can stay on the field more, he can contribute more, maybe in a 2-minute drill, important drive late in the year or in the playoffs, and he's out there actually playing and contributing and making the difference. He got to do this next step to showcase he deserves more than what he's being offered so far. Tight end position, Randy, Kincaid we need Kincaid to have a better season this year. We need Kincaid to look more like his rookie version and even to get better from that than he looked last year. And then we have Dawson Knox and Jackson Halls and Zach Davidson, who's it's an intriguing guy in my opinion as well because of his size and mobility. I don't know. I kind of expect Zach Davidson to be able to become a kind of a Scott Chandler, because of that size and body type. But how about this tight end room so far, and what are you looking forward to watch them in the preseason?
Oh, I got my eyes squarely on Jackson Hawes.
Yeah.
Locking down that
in Brazil, people love him.
Possibly a Dawson Knox successor, and I'm on the don't mess with Dawson Knox train. All right. A lot of people are like, oh, trade him. He hasn't lived up to his contract, blah, blah. Leave it alone. All right. He's a team glue type guy that I think is probably about as safe as you can get with the coaching staff. I think they love him. I think Josh loves him. I think Brandon Beane loves him.
Josh, maybe best friend. Josh, best friend there.
Yeah.
Did you watch Hard Knocks?
Yeah. I mean, I think Dawson Knox is about as safe as you can get, but you need a third tight end, and having a guy like Hawes, who could potentially be a successor in 2 or 3 years down the road, is a good thing. And so you want to see some good things from him early, to give the coaching staff a reason to keep him on the roster and not put him on the practice squad to where he could get, picked up by somebody else or outright cut him. So my eyes are on Jackson Hawes. I've heard he's done some good things so far, in OTAs, mini camps and everything. So, and camp. So I hope to see a few things from him maybe in the second half. That'd be nice. As far as the front line goes, Kincaid, man, it's step up time. He's got to be there. That's a big pick. He's supposed to be a big weapon for us. It hasn't exactly worked out, the way that everyone had hoped, including the Bills themselves. So this is about as make or break of a year as you can get for Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, man. Speaking of weapons, the wide receiver group will have a lot of opportunities to showcase their abilities because we have some guys nicked up, right? Shakir obviously out, and Joshua Palmer has been in and out of practices with a groin. Elijah Moore is just back. So a lot of guys being able to have opportunities during this preseason to showcase their abilities. The top three probably is supposed to be Keon, Palmer, and Shakir, but maybe Elijah Moore with an opportunity now can play better than Palmer or Coleman and make the decision tougher by the season start, right? When Shakir comes back. And obviously Curtis Samuel has struggled with several injuries, but he's still that guy that they are paying him and he's been with Brady for a long time. We never know. And Shaver showcasing some push with his skill set, a special teams guy, a guy that might be able to become a kind of Mac Hollins role in this offense. Other young guys out there as well. Stephen Gosnell making big plays downfield and people all of a sudden expecting him to be the next big play threat. What are you looking forward there? The wide receiver position and even Dion Kane is back, right? Him that played well last preseason for the Bills.
This is one of the most fun groups on the team as far as, the second and third line guys, because there's a lot of competition there. I think your top four receivers, obviously Keon, Shakir, Palmer, Moore, those, in my opinion, those are your top four guys. I think Samuel is kind of in a specialized role outside looking in, at the starting lineup. He's a guy that you could potentially move off of numbers wise. I'm not 100% up to date on all that, so I'll let somebody else handle that conversation. But if you're talking about from a strictly, a playing standpoint, Samuel's a guy that could potentially, be bumped off. But the second line of guys that you have, as far as, Chenault, Shavers, Prather, Hamler, Gosnell, Kane, like those are all guys that kind of fit some different roles, different things. And I think it all depends on what else they bring to the table as far as special teams goes. So obviously, if they can play special teams and they can do things that Buffalo needs them to do, that's going to help their case. But also being able to make plays when called upon. If let's say Prather gets in the second half and end of the third quarter, fourth quarter, if he gets free, but then has some big drops, like, man, that's an opportunity lost, right? Not for the team, but for him. So I think watching that second and third line of guys and seeing, how they step up in the moment is going to be the big part of the fun in these preseason games. Not so much the quarterback play or even like the starting O-line or anything like that. Like, it's going to be guys like, like a Caden Prather, like a Deion Kane, like a Steven Gosnell, and then like even pivoting to like the O-line, like Chase Lunt, for example. The good things that you're hearing about him coming out and seeing him step in game situations and really showing what everybody seems to be talking about in practice, So that's kind of where we go with the wide receiver group, is which one of these guys can kind of stand out on the second and third level to make a case for themselves on the roster.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. And especially one situation is special that I'm looking for this wide receiver group, and something that I miss. I feel like this group is missing is a guy with potential to go deep and be a deep threat for Josh Allen. Burning secondaries, because Keon Coleman has had some nice yards per reception number. We know he's the contested guy catch, right? The contested catch guy. Sorry. And he can go deep, but we won't count on him to beat people, burning people because of his speed. He will go deep and try to win the contested catch. We have some speed with Curtis Samuel. We have some speed with Elijah Moore, but those aren't the specialist guys, those aren't the John Browns of the world. They aren't even Robert Fosters of the world that use it to go deep and win deep, and maybe it was their best trait, right? Maybe if one of the guys in the back end can showcase that, it might add some value and put them in a situation maybe to become a sixth receiver in the 53. I don't know. It's unlikely that they carry six, in my opinion, but it's possible, and they need special teams value as well in the sixth role. But that's something I will keep an eye on. And the offensive line, I think, is pretty steady. Right. The offensive line, pretty steady. We've been able to, in the last few preseasons even, unlike in the past when we have put out the first team offensive line, the second team offensive line, third team offensive line was dreadful and didn't allow any of the quarterbacks to work properly or any kind of offense to work properly. Now we have a good starting offensive line, a good second offensive line as well, and even the third group sometimes is decent, right? So looking forward to see the guys developing, still keep developing. Chase Lunt is the rookie we've never seen, right? And he has probably showed good things to show as well. Unfortunately, Van Granger has been injured all of season, and I'd like to see him playing well this preseason, especially having on the back of my mind that McGovern is still in the last year of his deal as well, and nobody talks much about it, right? And I'm kind of afraid because of it, McGovern, very important, in my opinion.
Kendrick Green and Cedric Van Granger, both of them. You want to see what you have there. Granger, I know, is a little hurt to start off, but Green was a high pick before, if I remember right. So, if you can get anything out of him, kind of salvage that career and harness the talent that they saw coming out in the draft. I mean, that could be a steal of a guy. Again, not expecting that to happen because there's a reason why he was available when he was. But if you can mine that talent, whatever's there, that's a bonus. It's a good thing to have.
For sure. And to close it out, Randy, the special teams, we just signed in a kicker finally because Ray Davis was slotted to kick tomorrow, right? And now the Bills added a kicker in Caden Davis, former Ole Miss kicker. He was signed and will be kicking for the Bills during the preseason. I'm a little bit worried about Tyler Bass injury. This injury is really tough for people who kicks the ball. This kind of injury is really difficult for soccer players. For example, I've seen a lot of them struggle for a long time and had their careers shortened because of this kind of pelvic injury. And I hope it's not that serious with Bass, but they just signed the kicker. I don't think Bass is in danger anymore after a strong showing in the postseason. But can this new kicker maybe carve up a role in this Bills roster this year, or it's really a long shot for Caden Davis?
No, I don't think there's really any chance unless the Bass injury is way worse than we realize. I think they signed him to be a camp leg to save Bass from having to re-aggravate that injury any more than it already is. So yeah, no, the kicker they signed is just a camp kick. He's just a camp leg, and then he'll be gone, in a matter of weeks. So hope everybody gets to know him real fast because he'll be gone before you know it.
Yeah, for sure. And Keon Coleman has had some snaps returning punts as well, right? So maybe we can see Keon returning a punt or two and see if he can contribute there as well. Definitely a guy who wants the ball in his hands more this season, right? So looking forward to watching Keon.
Yeah, I'm really looking for Keon to not just win the contestants, but I want to see him get the ball in traffic and break free the way, and not just on like the routes where he has to stop momentum, but I want to see him win on some those in-breaking routes to where he can catch it in stride and really use the speed that he has and the ability that he has, to make some yards after a catch. Like we know that he can, win some contestants. We know that he can kind of catch it in traffic and then, bounce off a guy and go, in a lot of the same way that we've seen Shakir do it. But I want to see him catch it in traffic and not stop his stride and go, kind of Keenan Allen-esque almost in some things. So that's what I'm kind of looking for Coleman, and just a progression of where he was headed, last year before the injury. I think he was on a good track last year and just kind of got derailed a little bit. And that rookie wall maybe played a part in it. But overall, I just want to see progression from Coleman. I'm under no illusions that he's going to be some big downfield burner threat, that he's going to all of a sudden gain, 0.2 in his 40 or something like that and be able to beat people one-on-one. That's not realistic. But just being able to use his route manipulation and starting to get some of that veteran savvy to find ways to get open is what I'd like to see.
Yeah. Bills Mafia, hit that like button, subscribe to our Rumblings Network channel, subscribe to my own Fernando Schmude channel as well, and keep helping us and supporting us. Diego sent a message here, Randy. The difference this year will be whether Bosa can contribute. If he plays well in the playoffs, we have a chance of reaching the Super Bowl. Kind of tough, in my opinion, Randy, to count so heavily on Joey Bosa contributing at the level maybe Chargers fans years ago used to count on. I think he's not been the same for a couple of years already. And obviously, it would be awesome to have Joey Bosa, Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, everybody playing at their former all-pro levels, but it's highly unlikely, in my opinion. And that's why I'm so excited and curious about the young guys, because I think it's very much the opportunities for the younger guys to show something and to get better and become difference makers those opportunities are way higher than those older guys to being able to get back at their prime levels. But if Bosa can play at the level, or if they have a plan keeping him fresh, healthy, and he can be at least clutch with his sacks and his pressures, it will be a major help for us for sure, right?
You ever seen Moneyball?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's Joey Bosa is David Justice in this situation.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
let's be
For
clear
sure.
about one thing. I'm trying to mine the last bit of talent you got in you, and you're trying to stay in the show. Let's do that. That's Bosa. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he
Exactly.
works and can stay healthy, awesome.
We'll see.
Right? If.
Yeah, that's it. Randy, thank you so much for joining me today, man. I think we pretty much covered everything possible. The coaching staff, obviously, we don't expect them to do anything special for a first preseason game. We know how they play vanilla, all those preseason matchups, but good to have the Bills back on the field tomorrow, right? And excited to watch the game and to keep following the hard knocks as well as we've been able to have some success. So thank you so much for joining me today. You know, you always have a chair here on the show whenever you want to join. It's always the doors are wide open here for you. Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bills Mafia. I'll be back on Sunday with the leading the charge in Portuguese, right? Talking about this preseason matchup. And next week, obviously, another episode of the leading the charge in English. So uh, stay safe, have a great weekend, and see you around. Go Bills.
Go Bills.